I decided to work all summer and started working as a security guard in the evenings, then delivered newspapers and went to sleep afterwards. One day, my partner Akito and I were asked to go check out a building 10 minutes away after receiving notification of some irregularity. We were told we'd get a bit of extra cash for this, so we agreed to go. At that time, we were just excited because we were going to get some extra cash, but we were only part-timers getting paid per hour, so looking back now, we should have realized that something iffy was going on when they offered us extra money for this particular job. The place with this problem was a 5-story building with random businesses on each floor. It looked haunted. You know the type of building I'm talking about. The main entrance and the back door to the building were locked. We both opened it up and Akito and I walked in. The irregularity was apparently on the first floor, but nothing seemed out of place and there wasn't anybody else on that floor. We were instructed to check every floor out, so we decided to take turns checking each floor out while the other waits by the elevator in view of the emergency exit. So Akito started it off by going around the 5th floor, I went around the 4th floor, and so on. Akito came back and laughed, saying, "There was nothing out of place, we're going to get some easy cash." We couldn't use the stairs since the door didn't open, so we took the elevator down to the 4th floor. It must have been used as a storage area, and there were cardboard boxes piled up everywhere. Just as I was about to go check it out, I got a phone call from the security company. The reception wasn't good, and I only had one bar when I picked it up. As soon as I did, the line cut out. I checked my phone again, and it was out of service. I decided to go outside to call them back while Akito waited. I tried the emergency exit, and this time it opened. Since we couldn't check out the 5th floor stairwell, I walked up to the 5th floor once, checked that everything was all good, and walked back down to the 4th floor. Akito was still there laughing at me, saying I was taking everything way too seriously. I ignored him and continued down to the 3rd floor. The emergency door seemed to be locked here too, and I couldn't open it from the stairwell. Same thing with the 2nd floor. When I got to the 1st floor, my phone started to ring straight away, and I had 3 bars. It was from the company again. They sounded concerned and asked me whether Akito was all right. "Yeah, he's fine. Why's that?" I asked. They told me that they'd received a call from his phone several times, but they could only hear static when they answered. "No, nothing's wrong," I reassured them with a small chuckle, adding, "Maybe his phone's broken?" "Okay, as long as you're both all right," and they hung up. I didn't feel like walking up 4 flights of stairs, so I decided to take the elevator, but it wouldn't budge from the 4th floor. I thought that maybe Akito was holding it there on purpose, so I begrudgingly took the stairs. When I got there, Akito wasn't anywhere to be seen, and when I went to the elevators, it was down on the 1st floor. I figured he was trying to scare me somehow, so I looked around the 4th floor just in case, but he wasn't there. Maybe he went down to the 3rd without me, so I pressed the elevator button and waited for it to come up. When it got there and I walked in, I saw Akito's phone on the floor. Did he go home or what? I thought. I ended up looking around the rest of the floors by myself. Once it was all done and I was sure no one was in the building, I decided to leave. I was pretty tired at this point when I remembered that Akito and I had taken the company car to come here. He was the one that drove the car. I only knew how to drive motorcycles and not cars. Damn, I'm going to have to walk back. I walked out of the building only to see that the car wasn't even there. Feeling annoyed and having no other choice, I walked back to the company. When I got back, they told me I could go home for the night. I found out later that Akito had left me at the job site, rushed back, and quit his job that night. I felt like something wasn't right, but they gave me my wage right then and there, and I didn't think any more about it as I got ready to go home. I was changing out of the uniform when I felt something in my pocket. It was Akito's phone that I picked up in the elevator. Knowing he didn't have a home phone, I figured I should take it to him, and considering all that he put me through that night, I wanted to give him some crap for it. I decided to take it to him after my morning newspaper run. Akito lived on the 2nd floor of a run-down 2-story apartment complex. I figured he was probably still sleeping, but I didn't care and I rang the doorbell. No one came to the door. I didn't want to ring the door too many times because it might have annoyed the neighbors, so I decided to go back later in the day. I went home and went to sleep. The phone started to ring and it woke me up from a deep sleep. I looked at the time. It was 7:30 and it was Akito's phone that was ringing. I answered it and it was his mum. I went back to his apartment and rang the door. His mum answered straight away. From the gap in the door, I could see into Akito's room. I took note of the weird wallpaper design he had in his room. I wanted to go back home and get back to sleep, but we heard someone walking up the stairs and his mum quickly said, "Someone's coming. Quickly, come inside." She ushered me in and shut the door. I felt the blood drain from my face as I realized what that weird design on Akito's wallpaper was. It wasn't a wallpaper design at all. There were bloody scratch marks all over the wall. Akito had been scratching at it until his fingers were bleeding. The bloody marks were everywhere. "I'm gonna have to paint over this, I guess," his mum muttered as she took a wet cloth and tried to wipe the blood off. According to Akito's mum, she had received a call from Akito during the night. He told her he had accidentally killed someone during that night, but as he was telling her what happened, he let out a loud scream and the line went dead. She tried calling him back straight away, but no matter how many times she tried, the line was always busy. She talked with her husband and she came over to Akito's apartment on the first train. She borrowed the superintendent's phone and called Akito's mobile, which was the call that woke me up that morning. Akito's neighbors were both out, so she didn't know what happened. She just walked into this horrible scene herself. A few days later, I got a call from Akito and we decided to meet. He looked like a different person, and when he spoke, it didn't even sound like him. It actually made me question whether it was really him. After I got a call from him, I actually received another one from his mum. She warned me that no matter what Akito told me, to tell him that it was all in his head, that it was just a hallucination. Considering what she said, I was prepared for some crazy story. The following is what he told me happened. That night, while I walked down the stairs to call the company back, the elevator started to go down to the first floor. Akito thought I had ran down the stairs and pressed the elevator and was going to come up to the fourth floor to scare him. He wanted to get the upper hand and decided to scare me first. He hid in front of the elevators, his back facing the elevator doors. He heard it open and he felt someone approaching him. Then he heard the door of the emergency exit open. He turned around to face the door and saw it slowly closing. Could it be a burglar? He ran to the door and opened it forcefully and felt it hit something. He used his flashlight to look at what he'd hit and saw a woman with long black hair on the ground. Her face was looking upwards, but her body was face down. Her head was almost twisted 180 degrees. He freaked out and ran into the elevator, calling his mum as he did so. "Hello? I just killed someone." Just then, the elevator doors opened and the woman, whose head was twisted in an impossible angle, was crawling across the floor towards him. The elevators started to close and the woman's arm came in, obstructing the door from closing. The shutting and opening of the doors happened a few times, and finally, the woman slowly got up to her feet. She looked into his face and said,
"I'm not going to forget you."
Akito freaked out and pushed the woman with all his strength. I'd pressed the elevator from the first floor by this time. Remember when I was waiting for it, but it remained on the fourth floor without budging, so I took the stairs back up to the fourth floor? Yes, it was at this exact moment that all of this was happening. The elevator made its way down to the first floor, and Akito took the car back to the company and quit right then and there. He rushed back home, but he was scared the woman might come to his apartment, so he ran out of the apartment without even locking the doors. A while later, the person living below his apartment asked Akito what he was doing in the middle of the night, as there were sounds coming from above. He knew it was that woman, because he wasn't even home at that time. That means that when I went to return the phone early that morning, Akito wasn't there, but someone or something definitely was. If this was some kind of horror movie, I would have opened that door for sure. I don't even want to imagine what I would have seen if I'd done so. The fact that the company added extra cash for us to go check out that building might mean that they actually knew something like this might occur, but I can't be sure about it. The only advice I can give you from this experience is, 1. Never turn your back towards an elevator. 2. Open all doors slowly. 3. No matter what, don't open the door to someone else's house. But if this woman was something paranormal, and in all honesty, I do believe it was a ghost, I guess none of the above would matter. If you do open the door, what guarantee do you have that you won't see something horrifying? I don't really want to think about it, but I'm going to tell you a story that happened to me. I won't tell you my real name, but let's just say it's Yuko. This happened 4 years ago when I was 20 and working in a certain company. I met a guy who was fixing the walls of the building. Let's call him Shun. He was 17 years older than me, but he looked a lot younger, that I initially thought he was about 27 or 28. We started talking because my coworker fell in love with Shun's friend, and Shun told my coworker that he was really interested in me. They had invited me out for drinks a few times, but even before considering his looks or personality, he was way too old for me, so I was never going to be romantically interested in him. But my coworker told me that Shun was always in a horrible dark mood every time they went out because I would never join, and it brought down everyone else's mood. He said to me, "I know you don't really want to go, but can you just pop in, even if it's for a little while?" At first, I was always coming up with various excuses to not go, but after a while, I couldn't say no, so I reluctantly agreed. I figured going just once wouldn't hurt. Once I was there and actually talking to Shun, I realized he was kind and that people who knew him trusted and liked him. At first, we talked about general boring stuff, but as we started to drink more, he started to really ask targeted questions non-stop, like, "Yuko, do you have a boyfriend? Yuko, where do you usually hang out? Do you like drinking? How many people have you dated so far, Yuko?" Yuko, 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 Yuko. After a while, I was over it, and I could only answer him back with, "Uh-huh, yeah, mm-hmm." After a while, he got so drunk and passed out, so I figured this was my chance to get away. I told my coworker I was leaving, and I got out of there. For the rest of the day, nothing happened. The next day, I didn't have work, so I was relaxing at home when I got a message on my phone. "Hey, it's Shun. Your coworker got pretty smashed yesterday. Was he okay?" I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't give him my contact details the night before. I was drinking, but I have quite a high tolerance, and I remembered everything, so I was sure of this. I asked him straight up how he got my details, and he replied, "Oh, I'm sorry. When you went to the toilet yesterday, everyone urged me to look in your phone and get your details, so I did." Yep, that's what he did. The guy had snooped into my phone when I wasn't there, and he called himself and sent him a message so he can get my details. I was pissed, so I asked him why he did something like that, and all he did was apologize to me over and over, saying, "We can just be friends." Because he kept apologizing, and because he said we can just be friends, I eventually forgave him. For a while, I didn't get any messages from him, so I was feeling relieved when one day, when I finished work, he had messaged me saying he wanted to meet me and talk to me about something. By this time, the repairs to the walls in my office building were done, so I didn't see him around work anymore. Wondering what he wanted to talk to me about, I waited at the meeting spot after work, and he appeared straight away. His appearance caught me off guard. He was wearing a fully white tuxedo, and he was holding a small bouquet of flowers, kind of like the ones brides hold when they get married. As I stood there staring at him, he shoved the bouquet towards me and said, "I'd like for you to be my girlfriend and eventually be my wife." I was dumbfounded. After going out drinking that one time, I hadn't seen him even once. What the hell was he going on about? We were standing in front of my office building, and I didn't want anyone walking into this scene, so I politely declined and ran away, leaving him there. It was from this night that his demeanor started to get strange. "Sorry about what happened before. Must have surprised you because it came out of nowhere. I'm not mad at all, so give me a message." Smiley face. "Yuko, how come you're ignoring me?" "Hey, I'm sort of an impatient guy. When will you give me an answer to my question from before? How long are you going to make me wait?" "I'm sorry, I'll stop sending you all these messages. Please just answer the phone. Yuko, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He kept sending these messages until morning. In some of these messages, he'd attached pictures of me that he'd taken without me noticing when we were out that one night. I was past anger and annoyance by this stage and was scared. I wanted to tell him to leave me alone, but he knew where I worked and was afraid he might show up, so I couldn't. I did the next best thing, and I blocked him, but before I did, I saw the last two messages he sent me, which sent shivers down my spine. Have you ever thought about killing yourself? If it was with you, I wouldn't mind dying. This wasn't the end. 6 months since the flood of messages and blocking his number from my phone, I was watching TV at home when one day I got a message from an unknown number. I'm in a convenience store in so-and-so town. You live nearby, don't you? I know you're off work today. Let's hang out, smiley face. It was Shun. He was literally only a few hundred meters from where I lived. How? How did he even find me? I was so scared that I couldn't move for a while. I held onto my phone tightly and changed my email address. I stayed inside and prayed that he wouldn't be able to find me. Thinking back now, I should have called a friend to come over or called my parents, but I was so scared and couldn't think straight that these thoughts didn't even occur to me. Luckily, Shun never found me, but there was one last incident that scared the shit out of me. After changing my phone's email address, I didn't get any more messages from Shun, and I was slowly starting to forget him. But I talked to my coworker about him when he did pop into my mind, and he'd say how crazy Shun was and how lucky I was to get away. He'd say, I really didn't expect him to be like that. He felt guilty and apologetic, knowing he was the one that begged me to join them that night. One day, we were just hanging out on our lunch break when he got a call on his phone. He looked down and suddenly looked pale. What's wrong? I asked. Huh? Oh, I'm not so sure. I've been getting calls non-stop since this morning from an unknown number. When I answer, no one replies. Even if I block it, I get another call from a different number. What the hell? You should just tell them to quit calling you next time it rings. Do you want me to say something? Yeah, can you? I took his phone and answered the next time it rang. Hello? Hello? I got pissed and then yelled, Why the fuck do you keep calling? Who the hell are you? Tell me your name.
Yuko, you finally answered. How are you?
It was Shun. His voice was really raspy, but I was sure of it. I threw the phone out of pure fear and I couldn't stop shaking. After this, crying, I went with my coworker to the phone shop and we both changed our phones. He talked to Shun's coworker and asked her to convince Shun to stop bothering me, and I never got another call or message after that. I've always been a bit closed off towards men, but after this incident, it made me even more afraid of them, and my hair fell out from all the stress. We were literally only connected through the phone, but this guy was able to traumatize me mentally. This was a really terrifying experience. When I was in kindergarten, a student in the same year got hit by a car and passed away. A few years later, when I was in 4th grade, that same student transferred to my elementary school and into my class. There were 4 or 5 other students that were in kindergarten with me and who were all in the same class. We all met up in the gymnasium during our break time and talked to each other in a panicked but hushed tone. Didn't that student die in a car accident? No matter how much we talked about it, the conclusion was the same. He should be dead. We couldn't possibly ask him to his face whether he was dead or not. We all spent the remaining days as if nothing was wrong. The few times I talked to the new student, he agreed that he went to the same kindergarten as me and even remembered me. But according to him, they moved because of his dad's job, so he was going to a different elementary school this whole time. His reason for coming back was again because of his dad's job. He was standing right there. He obviously hasn't been in a car accident, nor was he dead. But it wasn't just myself that had this memory. We even remembered attending his funeral. No matter how many times I go over it in my head, I still can't fully grasp what happened. Recently, I ran into an old friend whom I hadn't seen since kindergarten. We were catching up when he said, "Oh yeah, remember that kid that died in a car accident?" He said the kid's name, and as soon as he did, I felt a cold chill run down my spine and almost felt like fainting. I've never encountered ghosts, but I just can't explain or make sense of this.